The Israeli ambassador to the U.S. just managed to pull a both sides false equivalency in reaction to the neo-Nazi terror attack that just happened in Pittsburgh. I know you might not believe me because that sounds extreme, but take a look.
Sir, can you tell us a little bit about what is support or services the Israeli government is providing to the Jewish community there?
Well, in addition to being here, we have a minister who's here today for the event at 5 o'clock. We're also sending Israelis who are specialists in dealing with trauma after these types of attacks. Unfortunately, Eamon, we've had many of these types of attacks in Israel, and we have some very good experts at dealing with the trauma that follows the attack, the trauma of the family members, of friends, and they're going to be arriving tomorrow in Pittsburgh.
I'm talking to you about the political leadership in this country, if they bear and the kind of vitriol that we see directed towards the Jewish American community. You just heard the president there say that people who are chanting in Charlottesville saying the Jews will not replace us, being described as very fine people.
Well, I didn't think that the president's comment after Charlottesville were very good, and I just told you that I thought his comments yesterday were as strong a comments as I've ever heard from any leader. So I'm very glad to hear them. And I think the problem, Eamon, is that when people attribute anti-Semitism to one side of the political debate, they make a very big mistake. Jews have been accused of being capitalists. Jews have been accused of being communists. Jews have been accused of being the biggest dogs. Jews have been accused of being the Jews for centuries. The people who we should blame for anti-Semitism is the anti-Semites. Those are the ones who deserve the blame. This guy who went in and killed 11 people at prayer, he is the one to blame. What I saw from the president yesterday was one of the strongest statements I've ever heard from a leader. And the difference of this president, Eamon, is that he has Jews in his family. So I think there's no question in my mind that he wants to confront the anti-Semites. I hope that people from both sides of the political aisle will put the politics aside and will work together to confront anti-Semitism, which is a growing problem. Listen, Eamon, the President of the United States is not the reason why you have Jeremy Corbyn in Europe, a leader of the Labour Party in Britain, who's an anti-Semite. It's not the problem why you have attacks against Jews in European countries.
But Ambassador, you're willing to call
and to simply say that this is because of one person, or it only comes on one side, is to not understand the history of anti-Semitism or the reality of anti-Semitism. One of the big forces in college campuses today is anti-Semitism, and the anti-Semites are usually not neo-Nazis on college campuses. They're coming from the radical left. So we have to stand against anti-Semitism, whether it comes from the right or whether it comes from the left.
Wow. That was low. You know what he's referring to when he says, oh, these anti-Semites on college campuses, and they're on the far left? You do know what he's referring to, right? People who are fighting for Palestinian human rights. People who are in favor of the BDS movement, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. That's who he's referring to. The far left on college campuses that in his eyes are anti-Semitic. They're the BDS people. You know, we warned you that this was going to be the trick from early on. And I warned you not because I have a fucking crystal ball, but because I had already seen evidence of it. They'd already started doing it. When Chuck Schumer and Hillary Clinton went to IPAC to give speeches, and what did they say? That BDS is anti-Semitic. That's what they said. And they're going all in on this strategy. So they're equating a neo-Nazi terrorist who just massacred people. By the way, many of them were like 70, 80 years old. At least one was in his 90s. He screamed, all Jews must die. This guy's equating that to fucking Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party leader in the UK, and the BDS movement, when the BDS movement says, hey, maybe we should give Palestinians human rights also. That's I need you to understand something. That's an argument that's made in bad faith. I don't think that he really thinks those things are equivalent, that you can mention those things in the same sentence or the same breath, but he's doing it anyway because it's an attempt to smear. So this is where we're at. This is the political dialogue in the country. And if you think, oh my God, this guy's an exception, I've seen countless things already of other people doing this, where they brush off the old both-sidism textbook and they go in and they act like, well, I mean, okay, this isn't really a political thing here. I mean, there's anti-Semites on the left and the right. neo-Nazi terror attack, and the reaction from the mainstream media is both sides do it. Both sides do it. Sorry, but you're not going to find any left-wing neo-Nazis despite what clowns like Steven Crowder might tell you. This is the state of the political discourse in America. So in other words, the far right-wing Israeli government, the Likud government, the Netanyahu government, they're using a neo-Nazi terror attack to score cheap political points and smear their political opposition. People who care about Palestinians are equivalent to neo-Nazis in the eyes of this clown, the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. I wouldn't be doing this segment if it wasn't, as of right now, a pervasive narrative. You know, a fucking neo-Nazi, I saw a funny tweet about this, even though the subject matter is very serious, but a fucking neo-Nazi commits a terror attack and massacres Jews in a synagogue. And the answer from the establishment and from the right wing is, the left wing has too many anti-Semites.